What horrible things lurk in the halls of Terror Academy? Find out after the title. Well, hello, and welcome to Trash with a capital T, where you give trashy books and movies the love they truly deserve. And some deserve more than others. I'm your host, Bobby. New videos are posted here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you like what you see during the video, give me a like. Makes me feel good, and it helps the channel. And if you want to see more of my content and make sure you don't miss any videos, subscribe and hit that little bell. It notifies you when new content is posted. Okay, so we are back to our more regularly scheduled programming here after some Spicy Cells episodes. I'm going to be honest, I hit a reading slump really bad. And this book, Terror Academy Boy Crazy, took me forever to read. It is not a long book, and it's not a bad book. There's nothing actually wrong with it. My brain could not sit down and read, so I struggled to get through this. That's why I did the two Spicy Cells episodes back to back. But I did manage to finish this. I'm going to be honest, this was probably middle of the road as far as like 90s teen horror books go. But there's some interesting stuff to talk about when you talk about Terror Academy specifically. So Terror Academy had a decent run. I want to say it was like 12 books about. Not great, but not awful. It was a competitor to Fear Street, but it went a little heavier and darker than Fear Street did. It dealt with topics that were definitely taboo as far as Fear Street went, especially like books like this one. And we will get into that. I will warn you guys now, this is going to be a very spoilery review. The only way to really talk about this book is to reveal some of the spoilers. So if you are interested in reading this book, or any of the Terror Academy books, I'm not really going to be spoiling any other ones in the series. They can be found. I found this one on eBay. They're not exactly the cheapest, but I think I got this one for like $10. You do have to hunt around because some people are going to try and price gouge you for these. Do not pay a ton of money for these. They are around there. Now, this is a series I've been reading since I was probably in my late teens. When I first found it, in a used bookstore on the south side of Chicago by my grandmother's house. The bookstore, I want to say it was called Bookies. It was either Bookies or Bookworms. It was this old used bookstore. And it was like it was tiny, but it was a maze. They had these really tall shelves and you could get lost in them. I found this, and I found Curse of Camp Crystal Lake Road Trip. Or not this one. I didn't find this one. I think I found this one there too. But the first one I actually found was a book called 16 Candles, which I would love to read at some point, although I do know the fat phobia in that book and some of the other books in the series is quite intense. This one really doesn't have that. I appreciated that. There's a few comments, but it's a bully character making fun of someone. But yeah, this is an intense one for a 90s teen horror book. So the general gist, we have Shannon, who our main character, who is moving with her brother to Port City, which is where most of these books, or all of these books, take place. And the school there is Central Academy. Those are the recurring places. And she's moving there because her father has finally gotten his life together. Her mother has passed away. After her mother passed away, her father basically lost his mind and became a horrible alcoholic and tried to make out with her best friend, which caused a whole host of problems. He ended up in an institution, and their lives got thrown into turmoil. So Shannon and her brother, I believe her brother's name is Patrick, are trying to finally regain some sense of normalcy. And now that their father has stabilized and has been sober for a while, they're finally going to go live with him again. Although the fear of him relapsing is always kind of hanging over Shannon's head. She also is still dealing and not fully mourned the death of her mother, which does play a part in the earlier parts of this book and a little bit at the end, but I wish it kind of had gotten developed a little more. Shannon as a character is frustrating, and she is part of the reason it took me so long to read this book. I hit a horrible reading slump, and part of what happened was just general anxiety, mental health, stuff like that gets in the way. The other part is Shannon makes really terrible decisions. Now, that's how these books kind of work. The characters can't make great decisions because if they did, they wouldn't end up in the predicaments they're in, and then you wouldn't have a story. But the problem is the stakes of this decision are horrifying. So, the general plot is Shannon has moved to Port City. She's starting at Central Academy. She meets some kids there. She meets a boy named Charlie, who she's okay with, but she kind of thinks he's let me make sure that's actually his name. She kind of thinks he's a creep a little bit. Yeah, Charlie. But then she meets this boy named Skip. And Skip is handsome, and he has a great car, and he has everything she ever wanted in a boyfriend, and he shows interest in her. So, of course, she's head over heels. Doesn't matter that Charlie and several other people in the school have warned her to stay the hell away from Skip and his friends. They are dangerous. And part of that warning is learning that Skip's last girlfriend is now in a mental institution because he and his friends did something to her that drove her mad and left her in an almost catatonic state on a beach. Okay, I'm going to use a forbidden word on YouTube to basically give you the idea of what this book is dealing with. It is dealing with gang rape. Now, it does not use that term. It hints around it. It tiptoes around it as much as possible, but it is very clear that that is what happened to Skip's previous girlfriend. He and his friends sexually assaulted her, and they attempt to do the same to Shannon. After everyone has warned her, she doesn't listen. They're all wrong about him. Everyone is wrong. They take her to a beach, to the secluded area with a shack, and attempt to sexually assault her. And she does get away, and it doesn't happen, but it is implied by what she learns there that these boys have been doing this to girls throughout the school. And she does the thing that everyone tells you to do. She goes to the cops. And the cops don't listen because Skip comes from a good family, a wealthy family. And it's their word against hers. So are they going to ruin the life of a good young man because of something that someone they don't even know said? So Shannon tries to push it off. Tries to. The problem is Skip and his buddies decide they want to get even with her for going to the cops. So they throw her brother Patrick off a balcony 2 stories, and he ends up in a vegetative state. He's basically brain dead, although not technically. So she decides she needs to get some revenge. She can't kill them herself. She knows she could never do that. But she can make choices, and she can set things up to make these boys destroy each other, because all of them have issues. One of them is a gun nut. One of them just has a temper and wants to fight everybody. One of them has a horrible drinking and drug problem. One of them's a thief. And then you have Skip. And they're all rapists. So she and Charlie methodically work to get these boys to kill each other. And they do. And it is kind of glorious. Basically, this is if you made I Spit on Your Grave into a TV movie. None of the extreme content happens on page. It is all implied. It is all hinted around. But it is there. And it is definitely... They're working to make sure that, like, they can get away with what they're getting away with without making it too uncomfortable for if a parent picks up the book. But there is no doubt at what these characters are talking about. And part of that is very frustrating to me. Because if you're going to tell that story, tell that story. But I do get it. This book came in and out in 95. This was aimed at 13 to 18-year-olds. If you had a book that was using phrases like gang rape, it would never make it onto shelves. Or Berkeley would never publish it. So you have to hint and you have to allude. But there is some really dark stuff hidden in this book. It is not elaborated on. But one of the things, like, one of the plans that Shannon has is to set the gun nut against 2 of the other guys. So she goes into his house and steals his guns and hides them in another guy's house. While she's doing that, she finds a photo album that includes Polaroids of all of the women that these boys have assaulted. I say women. They're not women. They're girls. They're high school students. It's disturbing. Now, like I said, it's very... I'm giving you more of the surface detail. I'm making this sound more dark and disturbing than it is. It actually plays this fairly straightforward like you would expect with a book of this era. There is drinking and drugs implied off-page, except for the character of Guy, who is drunk for most of the book. He has a very bad drinking problem, and Shannon uses that to her advantage. But you have all of this stuff that's there, and they just can't dig into it because they know that whoever wrote Nicholas Pine, I think, is just a name that they slap on the series, and different authors kind of cycled through. But whoever wrote this knows that they couldn't get away with it, so they have to hint. And I will say, other books in this series also deal with the subject of sexual assault fairly regularly. Not in any graphic detail, but when it comes to people being threatened, specifically the young women who are the leads in these books, it comes up. Now, I don't know. It's hard and tricky to talk about that because of the fact that, is it there to be shocking? Or is it there because whoever's writing this is making commentary on what these young girls, these high school age girls, are dealing with? I think it's a little column A, column B. This book, the reason I say it's middle of the pack for me, all of the seriousness aside, the pacing of this book is a little wonky. There's a lot of suspense at the beginning, some of it surrounding Shannon's father, and will he relapse, and the terror she has over him slipping back into his drunken psychosis. Then us watching her make this terrible decision with Skip, and everyone warning her, and it's like Greek tragedy level, like, you are going to be terrorized if you stay with him. He is bad news. He is bad news. And she doesn't listen. So you have all of this suspense in the beginning, and then in the midpoint of the book, when everything kind of happens and she gets away and her plan for revenge comes about, it kind of slows down and you lose a lot of momentum. And I was a little disappointed because it's a great concept, but I think it's also hampered by the way it's published. If this was published as an adult horror novel, as in it was written for an adult audience, I think it could take greater risks with what Shannon does to get revenge. Not just for what they attempted to do to her, but for what they did do to her brother and what she finds out that they did do to several girls in her school, including, I believe her name is either Julie or Karen. She's not a character. She's mentioned, but she's never on page. But these guys are monsters. They are written to be very stereotypical. Like, one of the guys, the one who always wants to fight, I think it's Raleigh. He's like constantly like smashing his fist into his hand. He's doing like I can't do it with the book in my hand. He's doing this all the time. The gun nut always has a gun and he's like waving it at people. Like, the characters are kind of cardboard cutout-esque. So there's not a lot of depth there. And all of the violence is really off page. So I don't know. It feels like it's hampered by its format. But at the same time, it is interesting that there is a teen horror book from the 90s that is exploring this. So I think I gave this one 3 stars on Goodreads, and I stick by that. It's not bad. The writing is actually quite strong. It does feel dated, as most of these books do. Most of these books do. They felt dated when they came out. It feels very 1950s coded. So basically, you have adults who were teenagers in the 1950s and 60s, or who grew up, like, they were around that, and they're kind of making these 1980s and 90s teenagers sound like they were from the 50s. R.L. Stine is guilty of this. Christopher Pike, not so much. He tried to make the characters sound more true to their age, but you run into it all of the time. Plus, during this time, you kind of had this revival of the 50s and 60s. It was interesting. It's like we have now with the 90s and 2000s. So there's the general problem. But as far as the Terror Academy book goes, I want to say, from the ones I've read, I have not read them all. From the ones I've read, this one is actually pretty middle of the road. I want to say The Prom, which I've read like 2 times, that's a really fun slasher. 16 Candles is, although that one deals with some horrible fat phobia. Student Bodies was terrible. That was terrible. And the way... That'll have to get its own review at some point. It is just bad. But there are some good ones in this series, and it's definitely worth checking out if you love that cheesy 90s teen fiction vibe. It goes hard in that, like, it fits that mold beautifully. And I kind of am sad that these don't get the love that a lot of those other series do. And they've never been reprinted. Because some of the series, like Horror High, some of the smaller ones, you can get digital copies or you print on demand copies. These, they just have vanished. I don't know. There are copies out there. They're not uncommon, but They've never been retouched, which kind of surprises me. They're not bad. They're quite enjoyable, and they're an interesting little time capsule. So, it might be a series if you are interested in this kind of book and this time period of writing to check out. Like I said, eBay is your friend with this. You do want to go to eBay because you want to see the quality of these books. Because I've seen some of these come through in really bad shape. And they'll list it as good on Amazon. You won't see a picture of it. Make sure you're buying from sellers who show pictures when you're buying old retro books. Please, 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 or you are going to get ripped off. All right, I'm gonna wrap that up. That was Boy Crazy by Nicholas Pine, part of the Terra Academy series. I can't remember which one this is. Let's say. I want to say. No, I don't think that's it. It might be the 7th or 8th in the series. Ooh, it's late in the series. For a little monkey D, that is the most adorable. Okay. Well, I don't know which one this is in the series, but you don't have to read them in order, so it doesn't really matter. All right. So that is my review of Boy Crazy. And now we're going to do the general housekeeping. Just to repeat what I said at the top of the episode. New episodes are posted here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you like what you saw, give me a like. Makes me feel good. Helps the channel. And, subscribe, all that jazz. I don't really have any channel news. Things are going to continue on like normal. If you didn't notice already, I did start a second channel inspired by the Spicy Cells episodes called The H Binder. So I did like that channel, so you can look through my subscribe channels and find it there. Also, I'm not going to link it in the descriptions here because it does deal with adult content. So it's a little more spicy than what you see over here. Other than that, love what you love, enjoy what you're reading and watching, and have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.